Welcome everyone to the Eurotrade and happy FOMC day if you celebrate. Now, this is obviously the Eurotrade, and we're back to our old time for now. So we decided that we are going to keep the European viewers to the consistent time of the show. If we're meeting for the first time, my name is D, aka Deeyana Angelo. I've been with Topstep in some shape or form for about 10 years. I was their first female funded trader, and I've been trading for 18 years now. 13 years out of that, I've been trading as a prop trader. Now, I am a Series 3 qualified trader, but I'm not a CTA, so therefore everything you will see here today is for educational purposes only. And I've got frogs in my throat. It's the morning, so apologies. Make sure to familiarize yourself with the risk disclaimer that Bruno posted earlier in the chat. And with that out of the way, let's have a look at copper while I try to battle my own throat. Let's first have a look at what's happening on larger time frames. So weekly chart, what have we done? Well, it's still looking pretty bullish here. Let me remove the intraday levels. Still looking pretty bullish. I still have this low volume area from this big drop and a single print. At some point, I do expect that we're going to start tracking through that area. Is it going to be today? I don't know. Today we have a maximum availability of the statistical range, basically somewhere around 2660, but we also have the implied volatility from the options chain around 525. So this whole price action is a little bit too high up for me for longs. So we're going to see if we can maybe find a bit of a mean reversion before we position ourselves potentially later. Daily chart has some low-hanging fruit right around the previous high and right around that average daily range high as well. So that might become an area for a stop run and reverse or a liquidity grab, whatever people call it these days. It is the same thing. 4-hour time frame, what did Asia do? They went pretty much up into a continuation. Now, intraday time frames, this is what we want to see. I did some homework, so I placed all of these levels to save us a little bit of time. We have the overnight high that was already taken out, and then we saw a classic reversal, which for these times is probably more of a scalp than anything. Didn't trade it. I was getting ready, and my half of my dogs went to doggy school, so I had to get them fed and dressed, put the collars on. But in the room, we still have 3 of them, so we're joined by three classic doggos. You can't really see them because they're on the floor underneath my feet, and they agree. Yeah, they agree. HG liquidity grab was a scalp. Now, when I look at the value areas, we are sitting slightly above the value high from COMEX. COMEX is the main exchange that this product trades on. However, you will start to see some more movement and livening up of the price action as we get closer to the London Metal Exchange open time, which is in a couple of hours. Until that happens, any moves that we see are kind of statistically a little bit difficult to call. Primarily because no major exchange is there to properly price this product. And the same goes for platinum, the same goes for gold. Gold typically on the vast majority of days at this time of day goes into a bit of a sideways movement. And I do believe that that is actually happening yet again. I don't know what to do with gold. Gold is just like up, up, and up. To me, it's so much risk at the moment to trade that. Nothing really to see on the higher time frames. It's just gone up. So I'm going to focus more on the analysis of slightly lower time frames. But even if I look at the 30-minute chart, we have this huge run up. Now, if this turns around for the FOMC, or maybe some unwinding into FOMC or into the end of the month, there is really nothing to stop this from going all the way back down. Something to keep note of is that while we went below this big demand area, we were not able to close any day below it. So this is probably more of a unwinding move. So can this go all the way back up to all-time highs? Yeah, quite potentially. Now on the weekly chart, we've had our first week in a while where we kind of went into a reversal, but there are all-time highs that, really considering the liquidity of this product, they're not that far out. They're not that far away. So if the FOMC does something unexpected, I do believe that that's going to be seen as potential more uncertainty, and maybe even that they have not really cut rates fast enough in light of what's been happening. That could be seen as bullish for gold. Why? Because gold is used generally as a protection from uncertainty. Used to be used as a protection from inflation too, but since it's gone so massively high up, it's going to be interesting to see how they want to play the FOMC. I don't think I'm going to be playing FOMC. I might pop in a trade ahead of that, but if I see that the auctions are really slow and that we're basically building structure throughout the day, I'm somebody who likes to take in about 3 to 4 hours of market data, and then my situational awareness heightens massively. So I've always been more end of exchange, end of market type of trader, and that is where I have the highest accuracy by far. So we'll see how they want to play this, but there is always that chance that this reversal continues lower. So there are opportunities on both sides, I would say. The fact that this reversal on the weekly chart had almost equal amounts of volume as the other one, as the previous candle, that is significant. But at the same time, they keep buying it. So this is hardly a clean change in sentiment. To me, this is more like, oh, let's take some profits here and then run it back up and make everybody be as miserable as possible. Very early in the day, so we'll see whether this potential for bullish engulfing might turn into a strong bullish engulfing, which would be this day finishing above 40.37, and it needs to really finish somewhere around 40.60 in order for us to say, yeah, that was a pretty strong bullish engulfing. And even so, the following day, with the way the intra-session sentiment works, there is still a chance that Asia sells off a little bit, and then when the Americans start waking up, they might push it even higher for Friday. But that is just a hypothesis. It is educated guess. So we'll see how that looks. If this doesn't hold, we then have the potential for more sells, and then we might be in a bit of an unwinding position with a more serious downside potential on the massive time frames. But for now, it's all a little bit sketchy. It's all a bit dodgy. We'll see. When it comes to the option levels, we do have a call wall coming up at 40.35. We were in negative gamma up until the moment that we reached 40.25. Now we've gone into positive gamma. So I expect some chop in between 40.35 and 40.25 until they decide where they want to take it. Can this go higher? It can. Can we go into a change of sentiment? Yes. So very precarious development. Now, out of all of the things that I'm looking at, I have my eye on natural gas. Like, natural gas is at the moment reaching 385. We finally rolled on Topstep as well. So rather than just looking at precious metals and equities and getting super obsessed with them and then worrying how do you trade the all-time highs, let's also have a look at the energies. And natural gas, it's been in an interesting situation. So we had this weekly attempt at taking this higher, but as you can see, we have an almost equal open and high area where the sellers kept just taking control, right? So we kept trying to wick above this 16 moving average, 16 period moving average, and they kept smashing down below it. Can we get above it? I don't know. But at the moment, 385 seems to be causing some issues. So every time we get up to that point, somebody sells it. But again, very early. NYMEX is the main session for natural gas. So we're a ways off from that. Can we go higher? I don't know. We'll see. I am considering, if we do get some strength, I am considering maybe an options trade just to take advantage of any potential upside movement. But I will need to see implied volatility get a little bit higher, because right now, I mean, it's okay, but yeah, I would just like to see that weekly wick maybe closing above 4, and then maybe we can get a very nice strong push away from it. This would be seasonally very good because during November, December, and January, February, some of those months will have colder weather. And I think this year, this is what we need. We need much colder than average temperatures in the Midwest in order for that to have an effect on the price of natural gas. Now, if we don't get that, if we get like a mild winter, I doubt that we'll see any kind of an increased demand for natural gas until February. But we'll see. You know, they're certainly trying. But I don't like the fact that they kept making lower lows here. And the whole composition of this attempt higher is flimsy at best. Flimsy at best. But it is interesting. And it's at a very good area if we can hold this recent low. This is a massive time frame. Remember, this is just like a longer term outlook. If we can hold the recent low, then there is a good chance of us heading into some longs there. They will last. There is a low volume node. If I look at the volume profile here. And we've tested it 3 times. This is exactly, so this is a single print here. That's what's causing the low volume. It was a very quick move down. We keep popping into it and it's resisting. Once I see that this is heading into it, then intraday longs will take precedence for that particular day or for that particular week. So interesting spot. From an intraday perspective, at the moment we are sitting below NYMEX value area. And also London, below London value. London value low, not that important because again, it's in kind of an out of hours session. And in fact, if you look at how London looked, this is like yes, they went down, but then they sort of consolidated here. And then NYMEX was just a bit of a snooze fest. Now, yes, we were in rollover. That kind of has an effect on price being a little bit dodgy and just meh. So once the rollover was done, they decided to run it back lower yet again. So, you know, not giving me too much confidence to just go, yeah, let's just plow into longs. But one of the things that you may want to look out for is a price moving above 385. So that GEX3 level, 385, is my orientation point. So I'm just going to put it here for visual cue. And as you can see, every time we smash into it, somebody sells off. Oh, we're going above it. No, we're not. What's going on? Yeah, so yeah, that's definitely now a top of the range. If we go higher, longs might be on, and then we will be in that special situation play where we are accepting the prices from yesterday. That will be a good thing. When it comes to the average ranges, I have 394 to the upside for the ADR high, and all the way down towards 372 for the average daily range low, which is also a higher time frame swing low. So might be a good area for long. So if they just keep going up, up, and up, then I will have to use the market generated information, like something like the initial balance from COMEX and the strength of the auction or weakness. But at the moment, it seems like the VWAP from Globex is slightly supportive. Doesn't have to mean anything because look at this volume compared to the volume that usually trades in NYMEX. And again, this was rollover, so volume is a bit sketchy at those times. So we have two hypos at the moment. We have for the shorts from GEX3, we have value acceptance if we go above GEX3. And really not above GEX3. I would like to actually see it above this high where we stopped. If they do a stop run and reverse, then more shorts, right? Nexus is saying, can you get Heidi? Can you give a gold analysis? If already given, I'll go back and see it. Just joined. Yeah, I did speak about gold. I mentioned a couple of things. So for the sake of everybody who was here, just rewind the stream. So I did give some levels. There's really no point talking about average ranges in gold and stuff because yes, there was space on the day, but this is just so bullish. It's so bullish. And we still have space up to 40, 75 on gold. But again, like, what do you want to do with gold? Gold is just going into a massive up, up, and up. What, do a breakout trade for whatever this ATR is saying? So right now, the ATR on a 30-minute chart for like these candles, so I take 9 previous candles, it's 132 ticks. So even if you go into a breakout trade, you will need to use quite a bit of risk. I see no structure that I can use to limit risk here. That's why I've moved away from gold. But yeah, if that's your poison, go for it. However, gold is not really on my radar because it's gone so far out. Maybe if we fall quite significantly, maybe I'll try. It's one of those moments. It's like, we're in, we're out, wait, what happened? Those are the moments that people have been having on gold, right? So it's like, it looks great on paper, but really it's so much risk. And it just wicks all over the place. Like every time I start seeing those kind of moments, oh, we're in, we're out, what? I start to go, okay, it's time to pause this and put it on the back burner for a bit until like some of its own volatility needs to come back down to about 22, 20. I think it's gone into like over 30, which is insane. And when that happens, there are like, for example, copper, when it goes into a high volatility period, it's actually pretty tradable because again, it doesn't do those intraday wicks that everybody, and I think it's because it's less speculative. So there's not as many speculators that are just trying to pull the price up and down in a single 30-minute period everywhere. Whereas on gold, it's kind of turned into the NQ of metals. It's everybody's trading it. Everybody's a gold trader nowadays, and that's causing the price action to be very, very tricky intra-candle. So even if you have a look at this nice push, this is a pullback of like 70, 100 ticks. It's like crazy. And then same thing here. Oh yeah, you're kind of breaking out. Great, but then it fails for a while. And let's see what the size of this wick is. So the size of the wick Yeah, it's like 75, 74 ticks. So even if you're like trading one micro, even if you're going to short it, your stop still needs to go above it. And if you're going to long it, well, really your stop would need to go somewhere below it, at the very least the low of this time frame candle. And to me, that's still 76 ticks. It's like, it's a lot. If you trade one mini, that's 706. Then I'm not talking about, oh yeah, but I use 20 ticks. That's great. But if you're looking at the overall volatility of the product and what sort of risk that product can introduce into your trading, that is massive. And I know that most people who get into trading, they're only looking at the upside. They're like, oh my God, I just made 3,000 on gold or 6,000 on gold. It's amazing. And then the next day they lose the 6,000. And you can see it in chat as well. Like some people who come to brag how they've made all this money on gold. You then don't see them for a week. And then they come back and they go, yeah, I lost the XFA. It's like, that's why, because it's too much risk. So on the days when it doesn't go to plan and you don't get that breakout momentum, and yet you still have candles that span 150, 170 ticks on a 30-minute time period, you lose the plot. And then you start doing stupid things. And every time you do stupid things that are very high cost, guess what? You blow up an account. So yeah. Verti says, this gold rush reminds me of the Bitcoin mania in 2018 when everyone was talking about it who had no idea about investing and trading. Yeah, it always happens, right? Your plumber is probably trying to trade gold now. It's like, awesome, dude. With crypto, it's so funny. We were replacing the windows in our old house. And this was like, I want to say 2023. And I was like super sick at that point. So I was like mostly in bed, but I still had to do work, right? So I would be getting up to trade. And one of the guys was doing my windows. So he sees the charts, right? So he's like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm a day trader. And he goes, oh, so anyways, I invested like 5,000 in crypto. And it was a time when crypto just went massively on a sell. So I said, where did you go? He went in at the top, like, of course he did, right? And he's like, and I said, okay, 5 grand, how much is left? And he's like, yeah, not much. I'm thinking of taking it off. And I said, listen, do you need the 5 grand? And he's like, well, no, now it's probably going to be like $1,000. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Unless you really need the money, those 1,000, just leave it. Don't touch it. It should be looked at as a longer term investment. Yeah, but what if, it never comes back? Yeah, mate, that's trading for you. So, that risk disclaimer that we posted? Yeah, that's probably the first thing people should be reading before they, and yet the disclaimers are everywhere, but nobody reads them. And I used to start my own YouTube videos on my Marcus Talkers channel with the risk disclaimer. And most people were like, oh man, if I just found this channel and read that risk disclaimer before I went into investing in crypto, I would have been like so much better off. So yeah, it's a dangerous thing. So this is why we say never trade with money that you cannot afford to lose. Why? Because things can happen. It doesn't, just because everybody's trading something and it looks great on paper, it doesn't mean that your entry is going to withstand any kind of drawdowns that you're bound to experience. Like, look at gold. Like, gold looked amazing up until about 2 weeks ago, right? And now all of the retail investors, they're panicking. They're like, ah. Like, imagine if you went up here. You went up here and you're like, yeah, we're definitely going to 5,000. It's like that to the moon mentality. It's like, yeah, this is going. Like, we've got to 4,000. Why couldn't we go to 5,000? Hey, why stop at 5,000? Let's go to 10,000. Let's go to 20, But that's not analysis. That is just like right now, those of us who are a little bit more sophisticated, we're now looking for an even further drop down to 15% off the high. And then I might want to do some longs. Maybe I want to even buy some physical gold at that point. But your everyday person, they kind of plow in with they don't think about it. and they just risk the money that they really cannot afford to lose and that will impact their standard of life. So it's a dangerous game, you know, it's a dangerous game. And luckily we have prop firms now if you want to do this more seriously. And if you are looking at potentially, you know, coming up with some skills that you can turn into an asset long term. But everybody wants to be rich yesterday, and everybody is not willing to accept the losses. What is the big secret in being a trader? Accepting your losses. Coach Paul says, love your losses. Absolutely. But how many of you can actually say that you love your losses? You absolutely hate it. You hate yourself. You hate the world. You hate the trading. You hate the laptop. You hate the computer. You hate the candles. You hate the product. You're like, you know. But if the losses are controlled and if they're not making a dent in one day, that is the challenge, right? That's the challenge. The challenge is, can you have a losing day and not lose the plot along with it? That's the superpower. Once you figure that out, then you've got something going for you. And then you can call yourself a trader. Because only once you reach the point of emotional regulation on a losing day, that's when the game changes for you. Not necessarily the candles. Candles will stay the same. But what changes is your ability to control yourself in a chaotic, not ideal environment. And I can tell you, once I developed that, my way of dealing with challenges outside of trading was massively increased. Like my tolerance for anything, like for example, at one point I went to pay for parking. The guy was new, so I was trying to type in the PIN number, and instead I typed in the amount that was supposed to be peanuts, but then it was a large amount, right? So then he started apologizing. He was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. We will definitely refund this. I'm new here. I don't usually do this. And initially I was like, oh, okay. But then I thought to myself, well, the guy already feels terrible, right? You could see it on his face. Like he thought he was going to lose a job. He was like, oh my God, what am I doing? This is so bad. And I just said, but you know, I'll get the refund, right? And he was like, no, absolutely. I've already issued it now. Look, like there it is. It's going to be in your account, but it might take a couple of days to appear. You know, if it doesn't, please come find me. And it was fine. You know, I just said, yeah, okay. It happens, you know. So he was like really impressed that I didn't blow up at him and that I didn't go like, oh, you stupid, what are you doing? And he was like, you know, I've got to say, I have to thank you so much. And then people treat you differently because you're not somebody who adds fuel to fire. You're somebody who calms the situation that's already tense and that cannot be made any better by another person blowing up. Everything changed for me. So it was like, it was weird how I was suddenly able to navigate some life situations. And that was purely as a result of me becoming more emotionally regulated as a trader. Now, I'm a Mediterranean woman. I'm very passionate, right? And as a child, my mom used to always tell me, Dee, you can't go head through the wall all the time. It's not a good thing. And I would be like, no, I just do whatever. And I was like really quite explosive. But again, that, you know, trading changes you. And in some cases for the better, for sure. All right, let's have a look at some chat. Bruno says, good morning. Can you put some elevator music before Dee talks? It spooks me every time when Dee speaks. Suddenly, a little silence of the morning. We will have, we're preparing some new assets for when we rebrand the show to the Metals time. But I will try to reach out to the team because, look, there's a copyright thing. So I have to make sure that the music that I'm using, we have either royalty-free music or I'm sure they have like a playlist that they use for the main show. So I will ask them, and then I can do some music before I go on. But I will just warn you that once we do rebrand, the intro is going to be one of my rock guitar solos. So if my voice spooks me, I'm guessing that mine is also going to spook you. And I do apologize for that in advance. Mayan, I think we've established that there are no free resets. Okay, so can we stop now? Otherwise, we'll have to moderate. So, and here's another thing. Instead of begging for resets while I'm telling you how to manage money, maybe listen. Maybe. All right, I'm going to try natural gas short. I don't know how much I'm going to get out of this at this time of the day. What sort of stop do we use? I think 35 is going to be more than good enough. So there we go. I'm looking for weakness, continued weakness through VWAP. Don't know if we got volume for that, but hey, it's something to look at, right? GEX3 has been another point of a reversal area. So it's still resisting. It's resisting arrest. So yeah, they're still not able to take it higher. So just looking at the MGI, I would like to see this continue. And maybe it's going to be the case of getting down to this low, which is the age low. Not really a setup that I like using on natural gas because it's such a small range. But there is a good chance that we retest the lows at the very least and then reverse. And in which case, that would be the time for me to trail a stop. I don't like trading stops, but again, at this time of the day, I don't know how much juice we've got to keep going. We'll find out when we get there. But the shorts are still defending. They're kind of like the, the football or soccer, as our American friends like to call it. You have the goalie. The goalie, somebody kicks the ball and he goes, like all of these elaborate moves with a face to match. So football players should be given Oscars for some of their performances. All right, so that was a nice sweep down. Now we'll see whether this single print can hold into the low. This is a bit too rich here, actually. This target, what am I doing? So 375 is the biggest thing. So let's go for a smaller idea, so that we're going to wick slightly below this low. So this is about 10 ticks below HVL, and I don't really like trading around the HVL. I'm just going to let the Cavalier out of the room because he's scratching and he's deaf, so he can't hear me. I'll be back in a second. Right, Cavalier has left the room. Oh, Sandy, good morning. Good morning. Very good. Doesn't playing FOMC usually mean selling longs right before and buying the dip after? Okay, so here's the thing. After, yes, especially overnight. Now, one of my plays that I have for FOMC, which I don't do very often because it requires me to stay up, overnight. And as the older I get, the increasingly less able okay, let's start that again. D Christ, let's have some coffee. The older I get, the less I'm able to stay up all night to trade something. Okay, I need my 10-hour sleep. I just cannot function on any less than that these days. So I did trade Nikkei. So every time we fell on FOMC day, I would stay up, wait for Tokyo Open, and then see if there's a possibility to fade it. This banks on the fact that there was a big unwinding move into and after FOMC. So yes, you are partially correct, but actually trading right after the rate decision during the Q&A, I am not in favor of that. And I will tell you from a live trader perspective that live trading during FOMC is not the same on sim versus live. Live accounts can get stuck in positions because there's nobody else to take your order to the opposite side. And then, no matter how great your strategy is, if your stops are not getting filled when you wanted them to, and your targets are not getting filled either, and then you're stuck in a position, what are you exposed to? You're exposed to the mercy of wherever the market fills you eventually. Now, with stops in particular, the issue is that if there's nobody there, stops don't have a guaranteed price, but they have a guaranteed fill. So they will fill you, but is it going to be 500 points away from where you wanted it to get filled? Yeah, it can happen. If you have a limit order, they have to fill you that price or better. But let's say that the price tags your level, there's nobody there to fill you, and then it goes away from your level, all the way down, or all the way up against your position. So then what? You had a great order, because limit orders have a guaranteed price, but they don't have a guaranteed fill. So when you look at it that way, slippage, no fills, or random fills that you don't know, like, why would you want to put yourself into that situation? So it comes back to risk over profits and the desire to be involved. If you must get involved for experience purposes, get a practice account. That's your best bet of seeing how price moves. But even so, just know, if you are a live trader and you're trading anything more than, I mean, even one lot, if there's nobody there, if the dome is really thin, it's going to be basically not a good idea to get involved. So I don't trade FOMC. I don't trade FOMC. Avi's asking, how do you find the API manage to get your strategies running? Unfortunately, the API is not supported on live accounts. As you guys know, I have a live account. I'm not able to have an XFA because of that. So this is why, if I want to remove some risk, you will see me trade combines. Yeah, so they work on XFAs, but live accounts are not yet supported. They are working on it, so it's all still very new. And yeah. How do you get COMEX value high and value low, please? That is a part of market profile concepts, and it is taken from the regular trading hours from the previous major session for gold and natural gas. Those are COMEX and NYMEX, respectively. They have their own hours, and I basically use those to ensure that I know where the distribution curve is from yesterday, which is what that is. So I have my own indicator that tells me that. So for example, on natural gas, just quickly, I'm not going to hang on this. You have videos on my Market Stalkers channel that had these charts. At some point, I might start doing something with that again. But yeah, so this is a distribution curve, and then it gives me 70% of the value area. All right, so we've gotten to that low. And it should wick below it, really. If it doesn't, then we're in trouble. Once it wicks below it, I would just get out. Bookmap still showing some sellers here. Delta is slightly negative, minus 185. Bruno says, what would you do if you locked yourself out of the house? Talk to the door, because communication is key. Oh, that's a good dad joke. I like that. Oh, thank you. That's lovely. I'm going to tell that to my husband. Because he does lock himself out of the house occasionally. Now, luckily, these days we have like multiple entries and exits, so, and I'm usually there, so yeah, but it's quite funny. Back in London, he used to beg the neighbors to jump over over their fence, so that he can get back into the house, because we used to have like a spare key around the back. But yeah, it's funny. All right. What about a stop limit? Well, the same thing. Limit orders imply... Hold on. Let me just... So now, any sign of a buyer, and I'm out. I'm just watching Bookmap. And waiting. We're waiting. Okay, we're out. Yeah, so that was a little scalp down into the nearest low. And now, if you look at Bookmap, the bubbles have suddenly turned green. Delta is still negative, but there are some orders there. And yeah, they might keep going down, but this is all I wanted. I just wanted like a scalp down. And we got grab some cash. Grabby. Stop limit. So again, limit implies that it is effectively a limit order. So you will effectively find that even if it's a stop limit, the fill may not be guaranteed, but the price will be. So that's always the case. There's no guarantees. There's no guarantees. You know, you know that market orders will get a fill, but again, not guaranteed price. Same with stops. So, you know, yeah. It's just too much risk for me. Like, the longer you do this, the more you get into certain situations in the live markets, you start seeing where your risk it really lies, right? And then you go through couple of bad experiences, and you go, yeah, I'm not going to do that to myself anymore because it's not necessary. I mean, I do just fine without FOMC, and to be honest, I stay out of all news. I don't trade news. Never needed to. I think it's anyone's guess. I would rather trade the aftermath of news. And if you're hearing scratching, that's the Cavalier wanting to go back in. See, I'm just a glorified doorman. Dog doorman. That door woman. That is what I am. I just open doors for 8 dogs all day long. I'm a butler for dogs, and I'm a dog doorman. Shot of caffeine. Let's go. Yeah. Bengelf man says, first time on the Eurostream after not knocking after London's... I don't know what that means. You do trade some unique pairs. They're not pairs, they are actual commodities. So I'm a commodities trader, so I trade actual things that exist out in the world. I was a crude oil trader for 12 years. Crude oil then went a little bit dead, but all throughout that time, because I was working for Energy's desks, obviously we traded a bit of natural gas. We traded some RBOB, but I didn't really trade it that much until like 2-3 years ago. And some people were doing Brent crude and crude oil, crude spread, so WTI Brent spread. That kind of went away. And then some people were only trading Brent or only trading crude oil. And crude oil was the most popular product at Topstep because it was a crazy product. Nowadays, not so much. But I always say I specialize in the more alternative products that are not well represented, and yet they offer opportunities. Like, for example, copper is probably my favorite at this particular point due to its smoothness of movement, lack of general sort of wicks and craziness that we see in some other products, but you still have a possibility of capturing anywhere from 70 up to 200 ticks on the day, obviously depending on your skill set and stuff. But it's slow. You know, if you get an NQ trader trade copper, it will be kind of like watching paint dry. But I like the fact that if I keep a trade for 2 hours, I can get 100 ticks out of copper. I'm totally fine with that. In fact, I prefer it. Granny D over here at 45 and graying hair. I'm growing out my gray hair very nicely now. Granny D. So yeah, in about 30 years, I'll probably still be here and going, let's look at corn and copper and let's trade some soybeans. Yeah, I still hope to be doing this if I'm not drooling on myself in an old people's home. Oh God. Thank you. So T Sion, don't know how to say your name. I have the market stalker indicator on MT5. I'll check my settings for the COMEX value, high value, low. Okay, I can help you there. Now listen, we are in a bit of a weird situation right now. Because UK changed daylight savings, and US has not. So for this week only, if you are using our indicator, what I have set on AMP is actually, I haven't set it on gold because obviously I'm not trading it at the moment, but this is what you want to have as your TPO schedule 1. So an hour earlier than usual, because COMEX in the States still starts at 1:30 normal time, but because we changed our clocks for this week only, this is what you need to do. So change the start and end times, and this has to be done even if you have the daylight saving setting. Now another thing is, once you get to next week, just go back to the normal GMT times. So this will be your new schedule, and then that will give you the accurate value areas for COMEX. So that's what I have it set on right now for metals. So it's one of the things where we can't really do automatically, or we haven't found a good way to do it. We have the offset when both countries change, but when we have that weird moment where we change and US doesn't, or US changes and we don't, that's the weird part. In March, it's actually whole 3 weeks, but luckily in November and October, end of October is just for 1 week. So hopefully that helps you. And then it's very easy. You know, you even have, like if I show you the natural gas thing, you even have the backtest mode on the chart. So you don't necessarily erase candles, but you can see, for example, natural gas yesterday, the ADR low was somewhere around 385.4. We also had a level there. Guess what? It hit it, wicked below it, and then you had a nice little scalp, even in rollover times. Even in rollover, the ADR levels are still pretty good. So for me, it massively automates the mundane parts of finding value areas and everything, and seeing how the previous day happened. I can just go back, see how the levels looked on the day, what was initial balance doing, where was this, where was that, and we tried to match all the colors so that we have 5 indicators on there that all give us different data points, but it's not all like jammed. So that's what we do on my software development side. One of the businesses. All right. It's, meant not falling asleep after Aaron stream. I'm on EST time in New York at 6:15. No sleep, poll study, market setups, right? That makes more sense. Thank you for clarifying. Are you British? I'm actually Serbian, Mediterranean. I know that my accent these days, or I mean, I suppose I always had an accent of some sort. I'm a naturalized British, so I did choose to live here. But yeah, my mother tongue is actually Serbian. So nothing to do with English whatsoever. But I did grow up with English. So my sister, who is actually in chat, she was born in London, and my parents lived in London. And then my aunt came to visit my mom, and she stayed in London for like 50 years. So yeah, I've always grown up with English around me. But I think when I first moved here, like some 20 odd years ago, plus years ago, I think I had a harder accent that was more, maybe even more Americanized. But then obviously, you know, living here for over 20 years does its thing. I'm a musician, I pick up accents. And in fact, the funny thing is, whenever I went to the States and spent any time there, like literally, like I spent 2 days there, I just geographically start taking on people's accents around me. I don't know what it is. I can't do it if I'm on stream and then I'm with Americans. It's almost like my accent changes with geographical longitude and latitude. And I think it's a little similar every time I go to see my mom and we talk in Serbian. She speaks a little bit of English, but she's not, like, she mostly speaks like German and stuff. But for me, it's you know, obviously difficult because I forget a lot of the words in my own language, and then I start trying to speak in Serbian, and I don't have an accent, but I get a lot of the words wrong. They're just similar enough, but then I kind of miss a letter or something, and then it's obviously another word, and then my mom laughs at me, and I was like, hey, I was close, okay? But yeah, English is not my mother tongue, but yes, I am a naturalized British citizen, and I have been here for a long time now. Coming up to the point where I will be living here longer than I actually lived in Belgrade. But yeah, originally from Belgrade. I technically have dual citizenship, but not really because I don't have a Serbian passport. So I only have the English passport. Why? Because I went through wars there and I have very bad associations with that country, and I'm just not. I mean, I still love them to death, but I don't want to live there because I think they have problems still to this day. And while 10 years or 20 years historically is not a long time, 20 years is a lot of life for me. So I wasn't able to wait until they sorted themselves out politically. So I made a decision to go to the country that was my other hometown, right? London. So I never felt like sort of fish out of water here. I grew up in Belgrade, that's like 2-3 million people, right? So it's not exactly small. It's definitely not a village. And then I moved to London that has many millions of people, but I never felt like I liked the fact that everybody minds their own business. Now that I've gotten older, I'm actually more open to the whole kind of community side of things. So where we live now, we're actually in Surrey. I'm not going to say where, obviously, but it's a very nice part of Surrey. It's a villagey situation, but it's not like super small village. It's like medium-sized village. And dare I say it, people are happier. You can see it, like you go for like groceries or something, and people are just generally less pissed off with life. I don't know how to explain it. Like in London, everyone is just so grumpy, you know? Everyone's like everyone's so angry. And then you go to the countryside and people are just chill. And I like that. Maybe it's because I've gotten a little bit older. I don't know. But I'm very much enjoying the countryside. Our dogs are loving it. You know, we have a much bigger house now. It's single story, 4-bedroom modern house. Again, I really need to like get back into sort of videos and stuff, and I need to I need to like film it because it's we wanted something that is spacious but not enormous because obviously none of us are getting younger. And you know, I've lived in big houses before. You end up living in like 3 rooms, and then the rest of it is just like gathering dust. So never got that. But we do have a sizable garden for the dogs. They can run around. We have 4 oak trees in there. We have a big double garage. So yeah, and it's all ultra modern, which is it's so unlike an English house, as far away from it as possible. So single story modern home, and it's just beautiful. So much space, so much, and the whole layout really suits us for our lifestyle. I have a like a 6 bifold balcony doors throughout the whole living room and kitchen. And then we have effectively 4 entrances, and 3 of those are some sort of bifold situation. One of them in our bedroom, the master bedroom. So at night, when one of the dogs wants to go out to do their business, I just literally roll out of bed and open the door. It's amazing. And me, because I've got this stupid chronic illness, stairs were killing me. I even fell down the stairs. I don't know whether you guys remember. I actually fell down the stairs in our old house, dislocated my shoulder, twisted my ankle. I'm basically just an old woman at this point. So yeah, I would not. I don't think I would have survived much longer in London. Yeah. No more crude oil. No, crude oil has got into snooze fest. Like every time I look at it for NYMEX, I'm like, yeah, there it goes, 91 ticks again for the day. And for me, crude oil has always been a NYMEX product. I've never traded it in London, ever. It wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't be like, oh, Dee, what do you do with crude oil in London? Nothing. That's what I do with it. Nothing. So I don't even know where I would start. And I just think that statistically, there are certain things that happen during NYMEX that just don't happen elsewhere. But RBOB I still do trade, right? So RBOB is kind of like a crude oil twin. Why? Because crude oil is a raw material where gasoline futures, RBOB, and heating oil are created from. So all 3 of those have a huge correlation between each other. And that means that crude oil movement and levels still work, but then you have the other 2 that are a little bit crazier. So RBOB at the moment, let me have a look at the ranges so that I can give you a comparison between the 2. So at the moment, crude oil for NYMEX, you can expect a whole 106 ticks on average, whereas RBOB is 277. I would argue that's still too low for RBOB, but it's still sufficient for what I'm attempting to do, and that's to capture about 30 to 40% of movement on the day. And I'm somebody who needs a certain amount of tickage in the product before I can confidently trade it. So anytime a product falls below like sort of 120, 100 ticks, really ideally 180 to 220 is kind of like my Goldilocks zone. Not too much volatility, not too low, and just right. Okay, just right. And yeah, because of that, I have moved away from crude oil. I still trade RBOB and heating oil. Do I have setups in it every day? No. I will choose the days where I will get involved. My absolute favorite setup on RBOB is when we have a general downtrend and then we open with a sizable gap to the downside, then we move back to the value low, preferably exhausting the average session range high or average daily range high, and then we get towards the last 90 minutes of the day, maybe even euro close, So into the euro close, you can get these beautiful, beautiful reversals from that. That's my star setup. If I see that, you know I'm jumping in with a little bit more size. And for me, a little bit more size means like maybe a third bigger position. So if you're in with, you know, 3 micros, maybe you add another one. There's no micros on RBOB, so usually I will trade about 3 or 4. And then if I see that we are basically getting up to the star setup, I may trade 5 or 6 at that point, depending on the stop that I need to use as well. So, but yeah, so I'm still very much an energies trader. I've been trading natural gas a lot more recently, but I just tag team, you know, I go copper and natural gas, then maybe copper gets a bit quiet, so I put it in the back burner, but maybe we have platinum doing something, or perhaps gold comes down in volatility and I can actually use a 70 tick stop rather than 300. So, you know, there's always something to trade for me, but I will bounce between my products as and when they are nicely sort of moving into that Goldilocks zone of volatility where you can control risk, but you still have enough follow through in the market to make things work without drama. And without drama being the main thing. And crude oil is just watching paint dry. I always say I'd rather go stick pins in my eyes than trade crude these days. I was on listening to At the Buzzer the other day, and they were talking about crude oil because Coach Paul was like, should we look at crude oil, you know? And then they looked at it, and I looked at it, and it moved like 91 ticks. So I was like, yeah, crude oil still sucks. And you even heard JD on the main broadcast get annoyed with crude oil. That was actually quite funny to me because JD is usually quite composed, you know, he's quite, you know, serious. And yeah, he does banter and stuff, but you won't see JD getting annoyed very frequently. But that day he was like, crude oil sucks. Crude oil can do this and it can go stuff itself. I don't like not touching it. It doesn't behave. And that was my sentiment. You know, that's my sentiment. Crude oil, something's happened to it. They're either trying to maintain the prices low or something so that they don't go too high and they don't go too low. And I think around 50, everybody's pretty comfortable. Maybe 60 is where they're comfortable. But anything below, like if you were here when Muhammad was here, he used to trade a lot of crude oil. So obviously he's from Riyadh and he knows a lot about it. And he said that while the Saudis can handle crude oil down to like $5 because it's very cheap to extract it from the ground, for Canadians and Americans that cost goes up to $50. So obviously they will stop bleeding money if the price of crude oil goes below 50. I think everybody's pretty happy around 70. 60 is just about acceptable, right? And I think this is the reason why they're just trying to lock it down. And also because of COVID, right? We went negative on crude oil futures and then they suspended it because they didn't know what was going on. So maybe some additional measures were brought in after that to prevent crude oil from being super, super volatile. Perhaps they have some market makers and algorithms that keep it stable at certain prices, and that's why we see these ranges that we seem to be in on forever. Like if I look at the weekly chart, you will see that crude oil loves to range. It doesn't matter what it is. We have like isolated couple of weeks when it actually does something. But then look at this. If I go back in time, every time we go to, like maybe you have, you know, 3-4 weeks and then it goes into this wiki price action and then it accumulates and accumulates and accumulates. This is like 2-3 months worth of accumulation. It's like, come on, what are you doing? And then they kind of run it up, hit the high, and then they again start to consolidate, 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 another range, another bigger range. So now we're in a bigger range, right? So now we have a range from like whoopee 76 down to about 50. Is that an accident? I don't think so. I think they won it in between these prices. So what I do with crude oil, like I don't trade it intraday, but I will pop in a short option if we get all the way down here. And then I may, because you know, when it starts to chop, you can actually collect premiums with short options. Never mind, I'm not going to talk about that now. But anytime we get to this part, I will do an outright long put. Why? Because it has a short bias, and usually when you hit these points, within like 2 or 3 days, you get an enormous move to the downside, and that's good for limiting risk with the overall sentiment of that product. So you do a long option. Why? Because it's limited risk. Like whatever you paid for the premium, that is your maximum risk. but all of the profit to the opposite side. Long calls don't work as well. They don't work as well on crude oil. So this is why I would rather collect premiums on that side. So yeah, that's what I do with crude. But when it comes to outright futures, intraday trading, RBOB, heating oil, and natural gas are where I set my sights these days. We have to be adaptable. You know, as traders, markets will look very different. Sometimes week to week, right? And you have to be good enough with situational awareness. This is why these streams are so important. We are trying to develop situational awareness in all of you and show us how we do it. So, you know, pick up a few things from each of the coaches and you will see your skills grow if you work on it. If you're resistant to it and if you still kind of stick to whatever you're doing, but it's not really bringing you results, that's kind of a different issue. You might not be coachable. You know, you might not be open to learning. I'm always open. Like, I know a lot, but I'm always open to learn. If somebody knows more than me, like about something, like Coach Jay, he knows a lot more about volume. So what, am I just supposed to be like, well, I don't really use volume, I don't care? It's like, no, I actually want to see how he does it. And then I absolutely did incorporate some of his ideas on volume, maybe tweaked it to suit my style, because I don't necessarily look at a 3-minute chart, but I will absolutely look at a 5 and 2-minute chart. And then I now developed a different way of looking at a range after a big move. So let's say we go from negative delta to negative gamma. So we're crazy moving. Then we get the gamma flip. Suddenly everything slows down. Well, now what? So it was a momentum. Now it isn't. Well, if you have a big candle that established a certain range, you can actually use that big volume as almost like support resistance intraday on a very small time frame. 1 15-minute range can now bring you more awareness. So are we going to stay inside it? Or are we going to start moving outside of that? And Coach Jay has this really good way of attaching VWAP to the high volume candle and then looking whether the price has reclaimed that VWAP or not. So I suppose we can use an example. Let's say today, in this case, we had this big smash down. So let's have a look at how it looks on a 3-minute time frame, like Coach Jay does it. So here it is. It is this candle here. Okay, so I'm going to mark that. And then in this case, it was a momentum down. Why? Because we immediately went lower. But Coach Jay does this other thing that gives him more situational awareness. And that is to get an anchored VWAP from the projection and measuring tools. And then to attach it to the candle. And then if the market never reverses, this indicates momentum, because we are never reclaiming that VWAP. But if it starts to reclaim VWAP, this anchored VWAP from the highest volume candle, you might have a complete rotation to the opposite side, right? So it just gives you yet another insight. I didn't know that. I didn't use that. I always used volume a little bit, mainly for my stop run and reverse, like liquidity grabs. So I will look at Asia high, Asia low. And then if we get like an exhaustion volume candle, I will be using that. But he has another way. So what? Even after me, so at the time when I got introduced to Coach Jay, it was like 2 years ago. So am I supposed to just like go, well, I don't care, like I don't use volume? No, I will be like, how can I use this? So there's this like infinite curiosity that should come with this job. And if you don't have that, I will be very worried that you're not open to being flexible enough to adjusting to market conditions long term. Okay. South Park character. Okay. Do you ever spread trade in energies? I'm not a spread trader, no. So sometimes I will do a vertical calendar spread. That's as close as I get to, but that's not proper spread trading. It's not my expertise. There are people who do that, just that and nothing else. But I was always outright futures, no spreads, and basically just trying to outperform the underlying with pure outright futures trading. That was always my job. So effectively trying to generate alpha as best as you can. But yeah, not through spreads. And, you know, back in the day, spreads used to be more like arbitrage trading. So you see, we can attach that same idea maybe to this candle as well. Because now, out of all the ones that we had, this is the one that had the highest volume. So let's attach VWAP to that. There it is. So what's happened? We've reclaimed VWAP just now. So does that mean this down move is over and we can start moving higher? We'll see. But for me, if we pull above 380, because then I can match some of my levels, which is an options level. It's an HVL. So if we go above 380, I would say that we're once again in positive delta, and that maybe we can actually rotate back toward KX3. So that becomes another opportunity intraday. This is the kind of stuff I used to do a lot more, and I used to trade more when I was younger. But then, unfortunately, the limiting energy nature of the chronic illness that I suffer from has gotten worse. And I had to figure out how to both still trade and conserve energy, which was a totally different challenge. So suddenly I couldn't sit there for, 8 to 10 hours and do my sort of 10 to 12 trades across 5, 6 different products. I had to pick the best ones and then just try and spend 2 to 3 hours on it and be done, because I would be like crashing in bed. Like I wouldn't be able to sit up straight because I wasn't well. So that was another growth that was actually quite positive for me in the long run, but it just felt horrible. And anytime there are some people who I respect as colleagues, and I think they're very knowledgeable, I will absolutely adopt things that they're talking about. Absolutely, 100%. How did I find Topstep? Okay, so that's a story that some of you have heard. I initially went to Chicago for an apprenticeship at one of the firms that was a market making firm, but they also ran this apprenticeship for random people. And in fact, if you didn't come from the finance world, they actually liked that more. But it wasn't like, oh yeah, we don't want any finance people. It was just like, yeah, you're a musician, cool. Come over, give us your money. And you had to pay for the apprenticeship. It was like a 2-month-long apprenticeship, and then you would get a funded account after a simulated period. So it wasn't really an evaluation challenge where you pay money for, but you pay money for apprenticeship. They teach you some techniques, and then off you go. If you survive that, they will then designate a certain amount of cash to give you, blah, 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 and so on. So anyways, upon my return to London, I really liked how Chicago was doing prop, and I didn't feel that London had it right at the time. So I looked for a Chicago-based prop firm, but I wanted to work remotely. I didn't want to be in Chicago. So I typed into Google back in 2015, online remote trade. No, it was remote trading prop firms futures, something like that. Guess what? We only had one. We only had Topstep back then. So I signed up for the challenge, and the metrics were kind of known to me, but I think I took maybe like a couple of stabs at the eval, and it was so much more difficult back then. They did have a time limit back then, so now it's like all subscription based, but when I joined, it was like minimum 10 days and then maximum 30 calendar days. So you had to trade full 10 business days in order to get funded, but you couldn't get over 30, and that was it. They also had rules like if you hit your daily loss limit in the challenge, you would lose the challenge. If you drew down 50% of the profit from the high watermark on the day, you would also lose a challenge. If your winners were shorter than your losers, you would also not meet the profit objective or the evaluation objectives, and you would also lose a combine. So nowadays, you guys have it so easy. Anyways, long story short, I became their first female funded trader. Didn't know that up until actually last year when Eddie told me, because he was like, well, why do you think we did an interview with you? I was like, I don't know. I don't know. And he was like, well, that's why. And I'm like, oh, I see. So I then got invited, obviously, to do Squawk Radio guests appearances, and it was only Squawk Radio, so we didn't have TV. And yeah, I was, popping in there pretty frequently, got to know everybody, got to know Hogue, got to know Eddie. I got to know Michael a little bit back then, but he was sort of popping in and out, and his username was Nebraska. So we all knew him not as MP, but we all knew him as Nebraska. Like, who's Nebraska? Oh, he's the CEO. Oh, okay, cool. So yeah. And yes, Bruno reminded me, it was 2 steps. So once you went over the first step, you would then go into the live funded prep, which would still be a sim account that you couldn't get payouts from, but you would basically have to then maintain the former daily loss limit of, let's say, 3K as your new weekly loss limit. So you couldn't lose more than 3K in the preparation for the live. It used to take like 2 months to pass it. And then at the end of it, you would actually get a real live account with 5 grand in it. So there would be none of this business of XFA, take payouts and stuff. That's all new from the perspective of those of us who have been around the block for a long time. And then you didn't really have any minimum days to trade. And I can't remember, I think you still had the end of day trail, but I can't remember, it was like so long ago. And then I actually, after a couple of years with them, I went to work for other prop firms, and eventually COVID hit, and I was like, well, let's see what Topstep is doing. All of a sudden you had so many prop firms popping up all over the place. And some of them looked pretty legit, but I was a little bit skeptical in the beginning. It was like, what? Really? And then some of them I really wasn't sure about, because I'm like, you're very new. Some of these rules, they are not really that great. And it just seemed like it was almost going backwards in 2020. But then everybody started releasing sort of the shackles that we used to have in evals, until we got to a point where now we've gone to the other extreme, right? Now you have million accounts. You get payouts from a demo account. Like, again, I say it all the time. Imagine going to AMP and trading demo account. And then you go to support and go, all right, I would like to request a payout for my demo, please. And they would be like, what have you been smoking? And yet that is a reality for the current prop world, if you can, let's call it remote prop world, online prop world, almost like gamified. And I think that's also the reason, double-edged sword, while it provides huge amounts of opportunity and an amazing way to scale up whatever your capital is or lack of for very, very low entry costs. I also think that it's been gamified by other players in the industry to the point where now, somebody told me the other day, they said one of their groups was saying that blowing up evals is a business cost. And I'm like, how is that a business cost? So imagine you having a budget for something in your actual business away from trading, and then you go and buy a bunch of crap you don't need for the business. Crap that is probably more expensive, and stuff that you could have done for a much cheaper cost, only if you had been a little bit more disciplined with the budget. But no, now we're calling blowing up evals business expense. So that's how far it's got to. So to me, it's just like I've stepped into some sort of a Twilight Zone version of prop trading, where sim farmers are now millionaires. People who have never been in live accounts, and they don't know what that feels like, and yet they've rinsed prop firms for all they have in some cases. So that is very odd to me. Like, that is still something I'm like, really? You call these people traders? Seriously? And they're like, yeah, trade FOMC. It's like, have you ever traded FOMC on like, 15, 20, 30, 40 NQs in live markets and seeing how that just doesn't work? But hey, I'm an old woman now, so yeah. I am trying to go with the times. I am trying to be open-minded, and I'm trying not to be one of those slightly more mature individuals who are like, well, back in my day, because that annoys me more than anything. So back in my day. But yeah, it's a little weird, I've got to say. It's a little bit weird. Moon Trader says, you're always changing metals. Now you have betrayed crude oil. Hey, crude oil betrayed me, okay? Crude oil betrayed me. I did not betray it. I would stay faithful to crude oil if it still had 220 to 300 ticks like it used to have in a day. Until it does, it's not even trial separation, man. We've signed the divorce papers. We're like splitting the kids now. We're splitting the dogs. Me and crude oil. How do you know where gamma flips? So if you have one of those subscriptions to any sort of company that does options, you will see a gamma flip where sort of like there's this line where the sentiment intersects a lot of this particular price level, and then at that point the market makers have to hedge, right? They have to flip to the opposite side, and they have to make sure that they are delta neutral by almost completely changing their inventory. So on mental Q, it's easy because it's marked as an HVL, high volume level, and it is a high volume area. So when you sort of flip or go past it confidently, not just like touch it and then bounce from it, if you flip into one state to the other, you will notice a marked difference in price. So if you were negative delta, you go into positive delta, things will slow down, and vice versa. If you go from positive delta into negative, things will pick up. My Eastern European side is coming out. So on mental Q, very easy to see. It's HVL. And usually the first test of it will bring a bounce, but every subsequent test and a confident break outside of the HVL, that is when you need to go, you need to be a bit careful. I actually dislike trading around HVLs because I always think they're like playing tug of war before they decide whether they're going to continue with the same sentiment or not. So not my favorite. Any fool can know says, back when you had to read the rules. Yeah, I know, right? We actually had somebody in the VIP at the beginning who said there's a 30-day limit to the combine, and I'm like, from which parallel universe did you step in from? And I was like, what do you mean 30 days? I don't understand. And it's like, well, we only have 30 days to per month to do things before we have to reset. And I was like, nothing resets if you're in profit and you haven't breached the maximum loss limit or intraday or end of day trailing. And I'm like, there is no time limit. Are we talking about the same thing? And then they were like, oh, so I was always under the impression. And so I was like, can we maybe read the rules? And they're like, oh my God, I don't know why I thought that. And I thought that for the last year. This is weird. And I'm like, yeah, I get it that maybe some other companies may have that, but I don't think anybody does, though. This is what confused me. So maybe I thought they came from Forex world, where that is still the case. Some prop firms still have the 30-day maximum. But yeah, for futures, I think there's a certain standard that's come with the evals across the board. So yeah, I'm not keen on consistency rules in the funded. I've got to say I would rather have consistency rules in the evals than on the funded level. Because then that means they're either using a soft data loss limit or they're capping your profits to a certain thing. So I don't really resonate with that. So maybe that will get better over time as well. But for now, I'm still kind of on the fence whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. So it's like if you have a big outlier day, just from the perspective of me, I would like to hold that, but I can't, because if you go to a place where there is a consistency rule, you can't do that, because then it's going to increase your massively profit target and payout will be much difficult to reach. So I don't know. To me, that's the part that would need to be regulated more going forward. Whether they do or don't, I mean, let's face it, prop firms have been around for so many decades and no one cares. It's like, yeah, whatever. I miss Eddie's humor on the screen. Yeah, I miss Eddie in general. Yeah, Eddie is such a character. He's amazing. Is this percentage always based on our drop down, or does it follow the evolution of our profits? There is no end of day drawdown past the original maximum drawdown given on the account. So it's basically, let's say 4.5K is the initial amount of cash that you get to play with, right? Once you've generated over 4,500 profits, $4,500 for profits in your combine or in your funded, there is no more trail. But in some of the other firms, I know that they're still implementing consistency past the first, second, third payout, but Topstep doesn't have it. They have a cap per payout per account and over a cap of how much money you can carry over into the live, and I'm actually in favor of that. But they don't have a consistency on the funded level. So in that regard, maybe there's two other companies that don't have consistency. I know that Intraday doesn't, but they have a longer period. Like every company has their own pros and cons. Let's put it that way. But yeah. But none of us would be here unless there was Topstep, because Topstep was the pioneer. All right, so overnight high on copper is still a little bit resistant to taking us higher. And the initial balance on copper was too small for me to run a failed auction there. So yeah, I'm going to wait for copper to maybe drop down. GEX2 is at 515, and that's also where the overnight low is. That would be like a perfect area for me. If we're still up at this point and we're unable to go below VWAP, I may consider VWAP as a long towards 525. But as it stands now on copper, I'm not really that keen on it. Maybe if we get a bounce from value high, then go over VWAP. That could be an option too. But yeah, let's see what LME and COMEX bring us today into FOMC. And if nothing livens up, if everything's just flat, I'm probably just gonna not trade today. So I'm certainly not trading into FOMC, I can tell you that. And then by the time FOMC is over, all of my products are finished for the day anyway. So, you know, COMEX, NYMEX, it all closes like literally half an hour after FOMC starts. So there's nothing to trade. So yeah, I'll probably just maybe chill out a little bit. I do have the VIP session with Hogue today, so that will keep me busy. So yeah, I'll be doing other things, maybe not actively trading. Maybe we'll just watch the thing. Oh, yeah, to remind everyone, the main broadcast will be covering FOMC. So if you want to hear Daddy Powell talk, maybe Daddy Powell is also going to give us a little message. You never know. He usually does. Usually calls us ahead of the FOMC and tells it like it is. So yeah, main broadcast will be covering FOMC today. That will be 1 p.m. Central. So yeah, you can join us there. It's not going to be me. I think it's going to be probably Andre, maybe Jack and JD. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. We managed to get a little scalp on natural gas. But yeah, let's see how whether they cut rates. What do we think? Are they going to cut rates or not? I reckon they will. I reckon they should have cut already, but they didn't. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah, so any fool can know says at that point you're trading around a rule set, not a chart. I mean, in prop trading, you're always you're trading around rules, but the less rules you have at the funded level, the better, right? It's like if you're an experienced trader, you don't need all the shackles. It's like technically you know what you're doing. So it's like, do you really need all of this? Like if you want shackles, you can put shackles on yourself with a daily loss limit and the number of trades you trade per day. Outside of that, shackles are for newer traders, those who don't have the emotional regulation yet. Then you need shackles. Then you need something that's going to tell you, hey, no more. You know, like when you have toddlers that are throwing toys out of a pram and they're constantly like, I want this and I want that toy and I want, and the mom goes, you can't have it. You can't. And then the toddler goes, meh. Well, it's the same with traders, right? It's like if you set some rules for yourself and there's no more because you blew up the rules and you've gone over 10 trades per day and you've reached the daily loss limit and you go, but you can't have more. Not today. You can have it tomorrow. Just you need to pipe down and control yourself, not be a 3-year-old toddler throwing temper tantrums. All right, so might be a pain watching paint dry on copper until FOMC or even into it. But natural gas is at least having some movement today. Let's see what FOMC brings. It's going to be an interesting day, but just be mindful that it might be a snooze fest up until that point. Or on the other side, they might just decide to unwind a whole bunch of inventory and then we'll see a throw up into FOMC and then maybe a recovery right after or during Asia. In the meantime, trade safe. So follow your risk. And I will see you very soon. I'm Marcus Okadi, and this was the Euro Trade. I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.